Hello, welcome to my young adult literature final video. I will be talking about what Dr. Solzer emailed me. I'm doing a little head start. My grandma had a TIA, which is like a mini stroke, so I got to get all my work done so that these next few weeks I'm ready to take care of her. But I want to just go down and talk about young adult before I jump in, just young adult literature and my own life. For me, it's been really powerful. I remember getting really into middle adolescence and I had a lot of really great role models in my life that I think led me to a love of reading. So I have an English degree in literature and cultural studies, and I'm working on a secondary education degree and a teaching English to speakers mother language certificate. And when I grew up, I got to read whatever I wanted. Not for school. For school, I didn't read. So I would actually do all the free reading with books I was passionate about. Books like Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. I have the trident tattooed on my arm. And my dad was really into reading. And so whatever I wanted from Barnes& and Noble, he'd get me and I'd read. I had a grandpa, my dad's father, Papa Buzz, who read all the Percy Jacksons, the Kane Chronicles, the Lost Heroes series with me. I read Hunger Games Divergent, those series, and I had teachers that were just really happy I was reading. But when someone told me I had to read this book that came out in the 70s or An Incredible Journey about two dogs and a cat, I felt no agency towards getting into the book. For me, it really was finding relatability in students and characters like me that birthed this love of reading. Now I'll read anything. I mean, one of my favorite novels is Frankenstein, but it was YA literature that birthed this new love of reading, a new love of the written word. And I think that new love of the written word is attributed to my eventual growing into high school and college, where I learned to see reading in a different way. I learned the skills of the glass panel, sliding door, and just being out there with the story. So let's get started. I want to start with the theme. The YA book theme I chose was the power and agency of youth. I saw this, I mean, it was really hard to choose two books because I saw this in like every book we read. Sorry with the home phones ringing, but I saw this in like almost every book we read. The two I chose were The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Sky literally has to, or Star, literally has to take up an entire fight for racial boundaries and racism. And when her best friend is, well, not best friend, but when her friend is killed by a cop on duty, she has to do a lot of self-searching and fight for and deal with a lot of trauma. So I chose The Hate You Give mainly because it shows a character who is like a lot of characters in this world. I mean, I personally couldn't super relate to it just because I'm Caucasian, but I will have students in the future who will feel very similar to what Star does, and even students that are inspired by Star's actions. She has to overcome a lot, but she definitely has moments where she falters and where she has weaknesses and she's scared, but it's totally human to be scared. And I feel like with a lot of fiction I read when I was a kid for school, if I was reading it, it was either classic or these characters were never allowed to feel scared or weak. But she overcomes it, and I think that's really powerful because, these are the first times that the youth, my students, will be feeling a lot of these, or they'll be experiencing a lot of new emotions and a lot of new instances in their life. And it's okay to feel scared or weak or in trouble, but we power through. And I think seeing a character that powers through and continues to show agency for what she cares about is incredibly beneficial and empowering to youth readers. My other novel I wanted to look at was the nonfiction Enrique's Journey. I chose a fiction and a nonfiction just because I wanted to demonstrate with the power of youth that there are real stories with real youth. Like, it's not just fiction, this is real life. Enrique is from the Honduras and or Southern America and Central America, and he has to travel all the way up through Mexico to try to find his mom in the United States. And I thought this was an incredible story. I loved it. It really shows that a youth can do anything they set their mind to, and you don't have to be held back by things you find unjust. He so he's stuttering. He consistently gets back on the horse and keeps going. He doesn't give up. I mean, I believe if I were to recheck, it was 3 times that he got kicked off, minimum, and he had to start all over. And then he got sent back, and then he would go over and he'd try to cross the river. And then he had to find his mom in the entire United States. That's huge. That's huge. So I really do think it shows that there's a lot of characters that have a lot of power and agency. And I mean, I'm gonna talk about it later, but here I'll grab one. Paper Towns, John Green. I wasn't going to talk about it, but you know it's right next to me, so I'm going to throw it in there. Uh, Q and trying to find Margot, the Pixie Manic Dream Girl. It's it's John Green does a great job in giving me like I would say 5 young adults that put their mind towards something. I mean, it's not as high stakes, but they solve puzzles, and it shows that there's a power in young adults to not only care for someone who everyone's given up on, but also solve a lot of puzzles and put pieces together. And they demonstrated an intellect that I don't think a lot of adults could use. So, I mean, YA, the theme of YA that I really want to dive into is how in almost every novel we've read, these young adults go against G. Stanley Hall's views of adolescence, and they demonstrate themselves as complete and utter, mature, intellectual, fun, smart, and just all around well-rounded, holistic human beings. And I think they're much more adult than young. And that's something I believe that a lot of us in the adult, I'm only 24, but I mean like adults, the ones that believe adolescence is like the stigma and the problems. You need to read more YA adult literature because kids, teens, young adults, new age adults are much more, you know what? I'm just gonna say it. They're much more smarter, intelligent, well-rounded, and experienced than we give them credit for. So another theme I want to talk about is a marketing theme, groundbreaking and norm challenging. So I just chose 2 graphic novels, El Defo and American Born Chinese. I chose these novels, or graphic novels, because I really loved them, and we did a lot of research on how graphic novels have this stigma towards them, and comics have this stigma towards them. But El Defo by C.C. Bell and American Born Chinese, which I have right here, both of them are award winners. So you got C.C. Bell's and the Newbery Honor Book Award, and I believe this got a Book of the Year. It also had Publisher Wiki Book of the Year, School Library Journal Best Book of the Year, Booklist Editor's Choice Book, San Francisco Chronicles Best Book of the Year, NPR Holiday Pick, and American Library Association Book for Young Adults Top 10 list. So this is also by Jean Yang. So I chose graphic novels primarily because they're groundbreaking. There's this huge stigma against graphic novels, and I mean, C.C. Bell's El Defo takes place. They're all rabbits, and it goes through panel and panel. And then you have American Born Chinese, which I tried to represent pretty well. But you'll have Jin Wang, the Monkey King, and Chin Ki. This is Jin Wang. This is the Monkey King. This is Chin Ki. Uh, both authors do an incredible job challenging the norms of what is YA graphic novels and in general what is literature. They represent students, they give different points of view, and they let you take really, really hard material and understand it in a completely new way. El Defo, she makes her Sonic era superhero superpower, and I think that really does well. I took a lot of classes on learning disabilities, and it's not disabilities anymore. I say that just so you can get the image in your head, but it's learning exceptionalities. It's behavioral exceptionalities. They're superpowers. You're exceptional. You're not disabled. You're incredible. You have different gifts, a different way of looking at the world. And I think El Defo does a great job groundbreaking the norm of, oh, because you're deaf, you're less likely to be successful. When in reality, El Defo, not only as a child, turns it into a superpower, but through the gutter, which is the period between panels, through the gutter, students are able to connect in the work and see themselves along with CC Bell. As for American Born Chinese, I loved it, but the different three stories, I mean, that was crazy for three different narratives to be going on at the same time and then come together in one giant mesh at the end. And to talk about as, I mean, I never really learned about, I mean, we talk about the Black experience and the Hispanic experience, but we don't really talk about the Asian American experience. And I think this was a groundbreaking novel to really give representation to like 18% of our country. So the YA marketing theme, it's groundbreaking and norm challenging, and they market it because they're breaking grounds and because they're challenging the norm. They are able to take youth that are in their challenging moods, because I'm still challenging. I still challenge societal norms, but they're able to take that and they're able to market towards people that want to challenge and bring fight to the status quo. Finally, YA novels, the power representation. Challengers Deep by Neil Shusterman, Aristotle, and Dante. And I'm going to butcher the name, but Benjamin Elier Sainz. Um, This was probably the one of the first super popular LGBTQ novels Aristotle and Dante discovered secrets of the universe, but they don't do it in some foo-foo lame stuff way. Aristotle is coming to age. He's trying to figure it all out, and he's not like he's not the stereotyped gay or homosexual man. He is running, working on his body, getting a dog, experimenting with women. He's just trying to figure it all out, and Dante is kind of that same way. He's not that stereotypical um, teen that's, homosexual. He's really just trying to figure it all out and do what's best for him and be true to himself. And I feel like by using unstereotypical roles of the protagonist and side character, but he's more like a meta protagonist. They're able to take Aristotle and Dante and completely change how we view the LGBT community and youth, especially the LGB. So I think and Q. So I think that's really important that it's not a stereotype or a stigma that we are very much more than what society deems the stereotype. And Challenger Deep is about Neil Shusterman's son, schizophrenic. I'm bipolar. I've been to in and out of psych wards. I loved this novel, and it gives this idea that just because you're 17 doesn't mean you can't be suffering from a lot of mental health problems, but you can find help. We need to be more accepting and loving towards people with mental health issues. And I feel like the YA novel has a power of representation that we don't really find in classic literature. Not to say there isn't representation in classic literature, but you have to teach for it, and students want to be able to see someone in the world that they live in. So maybe you can find representation in the creature in Dr. Frankenstein, but that takes place in the 1700s, and you want to see someone who is getting their first truck, or who is finding love in a psych ward, or who's drawing because they can't keep track of what's going on in their life. Those are very adolescent ideals, but they're very human things. So I'm running out of time, so I'm going to talk about my affirming teaching philosophy. I believe that students deserve to see themselves and find representation in the literature they read and learn to love the power of written word. I talk about this because YA novels allow not only for representation, but fast-paced, relatable story arcs that students can find interesting and developmental towards their love of reading. And young adult literature will play a great role in my teaching because students know I am backing their age level of focus, and in doing so, minister respect towards them. What I mean by all of this, like all of this combined together, is YA novels do this great job of representing youth as more than just, well, as Gene Stanley Hall would put it, instinct-driven monkeys. Um, like I got this advice one time, which was remember what it was like to be 16. Students are going through first breakups, home turmoil at home, first racial profiling, all sorts of firsts, and they want to know that other people are going for it going through it too, because I mean, like, no one really talks about it. It's not warranted to talk about. And I want to give students the ability to open that glass door and jump into the story and be a part of it like nobody's business. Um, it's really impactful to know, though, that teachers care about youth enough to want to relate to them and want to give them literature that they can relate to. And I just want to make sure that my students know that at the end of the day, I care about them. I care about who they are. I care about their growth, their development as adults and into more mature beings. And most importantly, I care about their success. I want them to be able to see characters just like them tackling issues that they couldn't even imagine tackling before reading the novel. So thank you.